Stop being gullible. And as the title implies, so many people are gullible nowadays. They believe the blatant, obvious lies of the world. They fall victim to propaganda, the media, and the popular voice and popular opinion. Most people literally have no original thought or beliefs. They believe the lies of the media, of secularism, jiu-jitsu, or whatever their idiotic school teachers told them without actually ever questioning it. Imagine your whole life is just built on lies because you were such a gullible idiot who never questioned the narrative. This is the case with literally the majority of people on this planet. Majority of people are gullible, and that probably includes you as well. But at the same time, it's like weird because these people think they're unique, but really, they are just a bunch of homogenous, group thinking tards. Like if you do jiu-jitsu, for example, you're literally a homogenous group thinking tard. You ain't no free thinker. You're communist sympathizer. The point is, people on average think of themselves as free thinkers and unique individuals, but really, they're just a bunch of gullible and homogenous tards at the end of the day. And the reality is that most people are just mindless sheep. They accept whatever is popular or socially acceptable without questioning it. Like, for example, the people who drink alcohol are like the best example of this, or people who smoke, or people who do drugs, or they eat junk food. They just do it because, again, it's a popular thing to do. And they don't want to be the weird person out. This is why it's like, if you don't drink or if you don't smoke, you're like that weird person, right? You're again, just like my last video that I mentioned, one of my other videos that I mentioned about how shame is the most powerful thing in the world. And the thing with shame is that it makes you very gullible, it's susceptible to gullibility. And and we see this very much in the media, the government, the institutions, right? The school systems. They thrive on people being gullible. Because when you feed these people blatant lies, of course these people eat it up. But once, they basically all become the same, right? You line up 100 people and, 97% of them are probably going to have the same exact opinion. They believe whatever their school teachers, mainstream news, and like so-called experts tell them. And the thing is, if you don't question the narrative, and I hate to use the same term that everyone is using, but you're just literally another NPC running on the default program. And, for the people that claim that they're free thinkers, but they like clearly follow degenerate things, you are no free thinker. And the reality is that most people who claim that they are free thinkers, but really, what they're doing is they're just parroting what society has programmed them to believe. They blindly accept the ideology of secularism, modernism, liberalism, republicanism, whatever is nonsense that's trendy. They basically just follow like whatever's popular. And you always see people like, especially online, just hopping from trend to trend to trend to trend without actually saying, wait, is this trend actually like good? Is this actually useful? Or is this like, degenerate? For example, I actually remember this. I just remembered it. Very good example. Many years ago, I don't remember exactly which year. Maybe I think I remember this when I was in high school. I think there was this one guy. It's pretty popular back then. His name was Boot Gang, and basically, what this guy used to do is he would go up to, like in New York, for example. If you've ever been to New York, there's these people that have like these tables and they're selling stuff, right? They're selling like jewelry or whatever they have. And LA actually has this too. But what this guy would do is he would go to these people and he would literally just go and like just like launch himself on the table and break everything. And he would basically go around just saying "boom gang," like right, or he would just finesse like stuff from the store and then he'd say "boom gang." Like, granted, it was a little funny, but it was also this shows you that people are willing to do anything for attention. And this literally became a trend. I think people started actually doing this, like because of him. And my point stands is that when societies become so gullible that even something like that can become trendy, basically that's when the downfall of that society is pretty much imminent. The people who follow like these popular trends, whether it's in fitness or martial arts, like for example, jiu-jitsu, and like secularism, and even what the mainstream education system says, all without ever asking, is this actually true? Is this actually the best way? What is your evidence for this? And I don't want to get too conspiratorial here, conspiracy theorist, but they laugh at conspiracy theorists. But the irony is that they are the biggest victims of the real conspiracy, and that is the control of the human thought. Because when you are gullible, you have no actual human thought. There's no difference between you and like a programmed like robot or bot. The robot actually might be a more of a free thinker, ironically. And the reality, this is the dangers of gullibility is that gullibility makes you weak, right? It makes you believe lies. You build your entire life on a false foundation. You can be easily manipulated. And if you don't question what you're told, you will be controlled by whoever shouts the loudest. And gullibility literally leads to slavery. And if you accept the system as it is, you will forever be a slave to it. And a very good example I just remembered. Again, in school, they told us that Christopher Columbus discovered America, right? Supposedly he discovered America, even though there were technical people already here, living here. However, however, the irony, but then like as you get older, I remember in college or was it high school, I don't remember. They started telling us, oh no, actually, Christopher Columbus didn't discover America, and it was the Vikings. But side point, technically, the first people were not actually the Vikings. Technically, if you want to be accurate here, the first people theorized to discover the Americas were the Phoenicians, which was like a Semitic group that they, they lived in like what's it called, like basically modern day like Lebanon, Palestine, like that area, and like Jordan, right? And the Carthaginians were also Phoenicians, and the Phoenicians were known to be great like sailors and navigators, and really good like sea merchants. And of course, there's other civilizations even before the Vikings, about again theorized to have discovered America, like for example the ancient Egyptians and even the ancient Romans and even ancient Indians and ancient even Mesopotamians, I believe, right? But the point is, they told you this lie that Christopher Columbus discovered America, right? And they sold you this lie for most of your life until you got a little bit older. They wanted to tell you the truth actually towards the end. Why? Because they wanted to show you that they could get away with it. It's kind of like how when you play a prank on someone, and then if you ever seen those prank videos where they play a prank on someone, and then towards the end they reveal that it was just a prank, it was just a joke. This is what they've done. This is what the education system basically did to you. And I know people are going to look at it like it's this very small thing, but it's like it's not a small thing. If they lied to you about this, Christopher Columbus discovering America, how much more can I really trust of what they're saying? Not really, a whole lot. You can't really trust a whole lot. And this is why it kind of like, it kind of like angers me when like people say, oh, like, and mentioned this in one of my more history, why history is important, and how your teachers lied to you, or how your history teacher lied to you. Look up that video. And I talk about like how when people say, oh, they didn't teach us this in school, but it's like, why would they? The whole point of the school system is to make you gullible. It's not to make you a free thinker. And that's the funny thing is that these schools again, because again they are just government agencies at the end of the day. That's what they are. The whole thing is to make you think you're a free thinker. You really you're not. It's kind of like you make them believe themselves as something that they are not. Like for example, it's like when people who do like bullshitos, basically like false martial arts, whether it's Aikido or Tai Chi or like Jiu-Jitsu, like these people actually believe that they can fight. But then like when they actually get into a fight, they realize, oh no, actually I can't fight. And the way I've been training is like false. So in the same way, when these people get like a reality check, and unfortunately some of them never get a reality check, right? So many people unfortunately never get a reality check. And this is what majority of people actually probably never get a reality check. This is why there's so many people, side point, that believe that if they just get angry and I just see red, they actually believe that they can fight. Because again, they're gullible. They've never had to actually prove it, but they just end up believing it. But if I got angry enough, and because maybe they just watched anime and they think if I get angry enough, I can beat this guy, or I can beat anyone on the street. I don't care if he's been training for how many years. Again, it's gullibility. Gullibility leads to stupidity. And again, in the same way, the school system makes you think you're a free thinker. Until maybe, in the rare instance, you come across someone who actually is and just exposes you for the fraud that you are. And it's very unfortunate because literally, like, hard to say, but probably like over 90% of people probably are gullible. And some people can become very fortunate where they are gullible, but they can be upon like the right ideology. But that's just because they were lucky enough to be brought in the right environment. Had they been brought up in the wrong environment, they would have been, doing that instead. And there's many people I remember saying this. It's hard for me to give you an example without revealing too much. But I guess the example I can give is I guess, someone that grew up like wrestling and doing no jiu-jitsu or no gi grappling whatsoever. He was lucky enough to, I guess let's just say his father was a fighter or whatever. He was lucky enough to know that, oh yeah, like the gi is just, you know, falsehood, and it's just wrong completely. But he may not have known any better, but he was lucky enough to have like a father who trained martial arts and who actually had a brain to not make him do jiu-jitsu or any part of the gi. Actually, this is probably similar to the students actually that I have. They don't know the falsehoods of jiu-jitsu. They just are lucky that I know, so I never teach it. Actually, yeah, that's a very good example right there. But like some people are just very lucky too, where they are so gullible, but they're on the right path. That can happen, but it's very rare. For the majority of people, that's not the case though. The majority of people are on the wrong path, and they're gullible enough to believe that the wrong path that they are on is right. if you really think about it, I think the main reason why a lot of people become very gullible is because, again, it's the school system. At the end of the day, it's mostly, but you can't blame the school system for the rest of your life. Even though, again, they psyoped you and they conned you and they basically made you into a living fraudster. You cannot blame them for the rest of your life. Once you leave, hopefully, you you realize, oh yeah, actually, the school system was wrong. Hopefully, you have come to that conclusion. And the biggest thing, because I guess I can like transition into this, but was it like how do you stop being gullible? And that is basically questioning everything you've learned. Is there actual evidence for this? And if so, is there a primary source that I can go to for this said thing? In Islam. And this is actually something everyone can kind of apply, even if you aren't Muslim. When someone tells you something, you should always ask for something called dalil. And what is dalil in Arabic? That simply just means evidence or proof. So if someone says the Quran says this, okay, show me the verse. Like you have the right, and it doesn't matter how big of a sheikh or an imam, which is basically, I guess if you want to think of like a priest or a pope, that's what what a sheikh or an imam kind of is like. It doesn't matter how big he is of a sheikh. You have to ask for the leader. You have to. And if he says, the Prophet said this and this and this, ask him for the leader. Ask him for the evidence. And of course, this can apply to anything. If someone says, oh, this is what you should be eating, ask him for the evidence. Or ask him for the reason behind why. Or ask him. Don't just like accept it. And in general, most things should be taken with a grain of salt. I'm not saying just completely reject it or completely believe it. Take it with a grain of salt until you can verify that it is true. You need to basically dig deeper and find out why. Like, is this actually true or is this false? You don't want to be caught up in this gullible thing. And unfortunately, with teachers, if you ask them for evidence, they like give you the sour face. And like, they're basically offended when you ask it. It's like, they want you to accept the ideology of just shut up and listen. It's like, no, like I'm not a slave who's just gonna accept it. And it's like these teachers really think they have this kind of authority over you. Like, first of all, you're not my parents, and even they, I also ask them for evidence. Like, even your parents, you should be asking for evidence for anything. Actually, yeah, your teachers should never be worshipped, and your parents should never be worshipped, or people like anyone else should never be worshipped to the point where you don't ask them for help. In general, never trust like the mainstream narratives of things in general. Because a lot of the times they're filled with lies and a hint of truth. But because of that hint of truth, they play a narrative that basically manipulates and psyops you into believing the rest of the lies. Like, for example, you will hear a lot of people, they'll say that cigarettes can help you lose weight. And this actually used to be propaganda back in the day. Not so much nowadays. But weed, unfortunately, actually is like this. You'll hear a lot of people actually, weed. Right? Weed is like the biggest coke that people use. And I don't know if I should make a separate video on this. Comment below if you want that. But yeah, but weed, man. So many people, especially that like that dude Joe Rogan. Again, he has a lot of great videos on certain topics or whatever. But because of him, man, like I swear, people justify weed. And I'm gonna just destroy weed. And I posted a video actually about this with studies citing it. It's a short video. Maybe I'll post it again on this channel. But literally, you know what weed actually does? Weed is so damaging for you. It literally lowers your testosterone and kills your sperm cells. And even for women, it kills the egg cells that they have. So you are way more likely to become infertile because of weed. And this is something Joe Rogan or any of these like basic weed addicts will never tell you. And ironically enough, the great scholar Ibn Taymiyyah actually even said, and this is actually something I found out recently. He said that weed makes you like it feminizes you. Basically, is what he's implying, and he said this like hundreds of years ago. And the irony is, studies actually do prove this. The studies actually prove this, and it unfortunately does actually make your brain like it basically makes you more dumb too. That's also another study. But the irony is that when you kill your sperm cells, right, and you basically become more infertile, that inevitably drops your testosterone over time. And this is why when you look at a lot of these weed heads, when they're in their dazed like state, I mean they act like docile, like worse, more like worse than women basically, like worse than children. I don't even think that you can. There's even a creature you could even say that they act like, because it's so like below and beneath any like living thing on this planet. And again, this is unfortunately because of Joe Rogan, especially. Like, I don't mean to call him out specifically, but Joe Rogan really does promote like just degenerate, like that specific degenerate. He doesn't just promote all degeneracy, but specifically like the weed thing. I don't know why. He just derides it so hard. I don't know why. I think it's because it's probably the big cope that he can't give up. And look, I find it very ironic, again, with him is that, again, I'm just going to mention him very briefly. I don't want to go to a tangent about Joe. I'm just going to mention it very briefly. I find it ironic that he's on TRT, right? Ironically, he's on TRT, which is, again, a false way to boost your testosterone. And, again, he's also a carnivore, and he's on the carnivore diet. I don't know if he still does it like 100%, but he was a very big advocate for it. But the irony is that TRT and steroids in general, all this PED and stuff, comes from plants. And the weed is a plant. So technically, you're not following the carnivore anymore. When you so you're gonna tell me that vegetables are bad for you, but then you're gonna smoke a plant. On what planet does that logic make any sense? Especially a plant that kills your sperm cells and lowers your testosterone over time. And again, it also fortunately makes you dumber. And I have the studies to back this up. I made a short video listing all the studies. But the point stands is that because of him, unfortunately, a lot of people have become gullible, is my point. And not just because of him alone. Like, he's the biggest person for sure. But, just the culture, unfortunately, a lot of people are starting to do it. So, what should you do? You should definitely research for yourself. And I went on a deep dive on, like, weed specifically. And they really hide this part. They, this is why you don't want to just rely on so-called experts. No, you want to rely mostly on evidence. Like, I don't care what so and so said if he can't back up what he said. That's why another thing, you should also try and experiment with things outside. Like, don't experiment with generously, of course, but I'm talking about like experiment with actual like thoughtful things. Like for example, your health. So try out like, does this food actually help me? Does this like pearl powder or like this powder that's actually organic and everything? Like, does this help me? Does drinking coffee actually help me? Wait, maybe I can try the carnivore diet, see how does this play. Maybe I can try the vegan diet for a week, see how does it play. Do I actually feel better? Or maybe if I give up junk food for like a week, how will I actually feel better? So again, try out these things. That's also another way. And of course, observe reality. You wanna try things, but you also don't want to be super myopic in the sense that only what I have done is true. But at the same time, you don't want to also believe that what everyone else is doing. is also just truth. And another thing is training your mind like a warrior. Because the thing is, actually, they've done this study and they found that men who have higher testosterone tend to be more disagreeable. And it's not just because, and again, I want to say this with nuance. Don't just be disagreeable for the sake of being disagreeable. There's so many people I know that are like this, like just arguing just to argue. And again, these like fat losers that are like, oh, they're like gonna rage bait you. But again, you don't want to be people like that because you're just gonna waste time. So at the end of the day, it's the strong minds that hunt for the truth, and they don't fall for gullibility. At the end of the day, if you fall victim to propaganda, or you fall victim to some form of a lie, you have to ask yourself, how did you fall? And how will you? And again, you have to do this with like anything. Because even I discovered this every time I discover new information on something, I always ask myself, how were you so stupid to fall for this? Or so ask yourself, like, you have to hold yourself accountable on this end. And you don't want to be gullible. Like being gullible is like the worst thing. And there's so many people that are soft and meek and they like are gullible. And I genuinely believe this is why, side point again, simps exist. They genuinely believe that women can never be wrong. How does that even make any sense? How does that make any sense? I don't know. You're telling me no women can be wrong. And another point is, I see this trend again with especially female side. Girls supporting girls. Which I mean, it sounds nice on paper, but if the girl is a neo-Nazi, are you really going to support her? Is that what you're telling me? It's like, are you just going to support all women? You know how literally idiotic that philosophy is. So you're telling me there are women, I don't know, like just like men, women do terrible things too. Um, I mean that's not that hard to believe. There are women that are neo-Nazis, like I said, and there are women that do other things as well, like that commit murder and steal. You're telling me you're going to support that too? Like, come on now. Or women that believe in false. You're going to support that. Oh, but she's a girl. I don't care. I don't care if a man is on the truth or if a woman is on the truth. At the end of the day, is the truth. And your gender does not care about truth. Oh, I mean, the truth doesn't care about your gender. Rather, should I say? But yeah, the point is, stop being gullible. Don't just fall for information. And yeah, again, I really recommend people doing deep dives on research. The best thing that I can recommend really is most of the people don't just blindly follow what they say. If they give you evidence for it, sure. But like your teachers, your parents, siblings, coaches, like whoever, friends, anyone that you know in life, don't just blindly like follow just because they said so, or you're afraid of offending them. Because again, that's what they want. That's what they want for you to be is to be afraid. And unfortunately, gullibility makes you that way. It makes you this docile, timid, like, I don't want to be afraid. I don't want to, like, rebel. Just like I mentioned in my previous video, being rational, right, on the rational person, and not being reasonable. When you're reasonable, you do become gullible. Because, like I said, gullibility does make you weak. Like, you literally have basically become manipulated. And unfortunately, the school system, which I don't even know why, like, looking at it, I don't know why parents would send their kids to, first of all, be taught by absolute like idiots because most teachers are that way. Maybe not all teachers, but majority of them are that way. They're just Basically, if you really think about it, teachers are just government agents. Like, and the questionable things that they teach, since people think it's like a recent thing, like since like 2015 or whatever. No, this has been a thing since like, well, there's a long history of how the school system basically became devolved, and I recommend you guys doing the research on that. I can't necessarily, unfortunately, mention too much on it, because my social media has already been like flagged. Definitely do your research on how the modern education, the modern Western education system has been founded. Definitely do your research on that, and how it's literally designed to make you gullible. Definitely look into it. It's actually a very shocking history. But yeah, I mean, hopefully, like the points that I've made have made sense about how why you shouldn't be gullible and the harms of gullibility, as well as how to stop being gullible. But to sum up what I'm basically saying on how to stop being gullible, question everything. So basically, just dig deeper and find out why things are true and with evidence. Never trust mainstream narratives in general. Popular voice is often the most corrupt voice. And research for yourself. Don't rely on so-called experts. Experiment, study, history, science, observe reality, and of course, then you can draw a better conclusion from that. And lastly, train your mind like a warrior. Weak minds accept reality, and strong minds hunt for the truth. Hopefully, everything I've made has made sense, and you can comment below your thoughts. Like, let me know parts that you maybe agree with me, parts maybe you disagree with me. But yeah, hopefully you guys can like and subscribe. And until next time.